Okay, Mishlei 11:12, and I did look ahead, and I realized we are out of the woods. Okay, so if you like woods being psukim about Tzaddik, Russia, Yashar, Boge, Tam, looks like we will not have any of those psukim for quite a while. There's like one that talks about Russia later on, but for the most part, we're into like random pasuk Mishlei now. So this is familiar territory. Okay, so 11:12. Baz l're'ehu chasar lev v'ish tevunos Yahrish. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and translate this one because this is a really hard one to translate, surprisingly so. Okay, so Baz, so I was kind of surprised that all Torah just says despise, okay, because the way that I would have translated, I mean, it does mean despise. Like, the clearest example or the most known example, I think, is with Esav, Vayivez Esav es habachora, that he despised the birthright after he sold it. But Baz also, like, I would have translated it as to disparage or to treat with resentment. Okay. Like despise to me, in English at least, implies just an attitude, whereas the Hebrew term in biblical Hebrew and certainly in rabbinic Hebrew conveys like an expression of derision. So deride, I think, would probably be the better word. Okay, so one who derides his fellow, okay, chasar lev, okay, lacks a heart. Now, I want to be very clear here. This is one where like it's very easy to just like equate that with the same idiom in English. You know, in English, when we say you lack a heart, we mean that you have no empathy. Okay, I'm like 99% sure that no one holds that that's what chasar lev means. Okay, so chasar lev, we're going to see from the way that the meforshim talk about it, but it does not mean that you lack. It doesn't mean cruel or lacking empathy. And in fact, I actually meant to look at this before the shiur. Let me just try something out here. Hold on. Just want to do a quick search. Let me share the whole screen. I'm going to do a quick search for this because I'm fairly certain. Hold on, where are we here? This is Mishlei. Okay, so let's do chasar lev, and maybe we'll just look at the Mishlei ones. You'll notice with chasar lev that okay, so it looks like are they all in Mishlei? No, 12 are in Mishlei and one is in Koheles. Okay, so all of them are. So I guess this is a Shlomo term, Shlomo Melech term. I guess he's the one who came up with it. So let's look in the actual. Let's see, the psukim. Hold on, just 1 second here. So yeah, hold on, just 1 second. Is this going to be relevant? Adam chasar lev. Yeah, okay. So you're going to see this pattern here that chasar lev is often contrasted with understanding. Okay, so actually, I guess we should read our pasuk first. So one who derides his heart, his fellow lacks a heart. V'ish tevunos, here's new Mishlei personality, and a man of understandings. Okay, Yahrish. Okay, so Yahrish is also difficult to translate. Okay, Cherish is a speechless or a deaf person, because remember back in the olden days, deaf and mute were the same concept, because that's how they occurred in nature. So that's why all Torah says to be silent, dumb, or speechless, to be deaf. There's another meaning, which I reversed the order because I don't think it means this here. It also can mean to devise or to plot or to cut. Okay, like in this week's parsha with the B'tzala, I think, like Maseh Chorash v'Choshev. Yeah.
Could you elaborate what you mean by that's how they occurred in nature, like
meaning that there was no, before the invention of sign language, then if you were born deaf, then you also couldn't speak. That's why deaf and dumb were the same. Deaf and dumb meant that you have no intellect, you can't talk, and you can't hear.
So it's not talking about like literally mute, because like there are people who can't hear but can speak, right? I'm pretty sure I know someone like that.
Well, you know someone like that because either they lost hearing later or that they learned language. But in the olden days, if you were born deaf, you just would never learn language.
Like, I'm still missing here. Meaning, like, if they have the vocal cords, but they
you can make
can't-
noises, right?
Okay.
But you can't have language. Like you can't have words or sentences that are syntax based, because you just never, the people like that would never develop their understanding. That's why sign language was such a good invention.
They wouldn't know what sounds are familiar to people as words.
No, I'm saying they literally would not develop their language. They could not think.
But I feel like there's okay. I mean, I guess this isn't a science class, but like that's interesting. Like I have questions.
Yeah, look at Wikipedia. Yeah, I mean, the only cases I think where there are where it's like that now. I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess you probably still find cases like that in like kids who are mistreated and stuff. But yeah, that's why like in English and in Hebrew, the word deaf and dumb and mute are all in conjunction, and that's why in halakha we differentiate between someone who's deaf but became deaf, that they still are someone in halakha. The halakha category is cherish, shota, vakatan. Cherish is a deaf mute. Shota is someone with a mental disorder, and a katan is a minor. And we say that those are all categories of people who lack das, who lack knowledge. But that is, we don't just say deaf if you can't hear. We say that if you were raised deaf, and then nowadays that's not the case if you learn, learn language. Okay, anyway, so a man of understandings will be silent. Okay, I think that's gonna be how we translate it right now. Okay, yeah. Will be silent, or silent is probably the most accurate. You could say silent or deaf or mute. Let's just put all of them in there. Okay, so that is that. A few more nuances here in the translation. Why is this? All right, there's that. Yeah, okay, so then we have, hold on here. I don't know why, something must have changed in Word. I used to be able to just easily delete that. Okay. Mitzustian says Yahrish is yishtok, means he will be silent. Okay, so that's how we translated it. Sadigon says Yahrish is Yahrish lo, he will be silent to him. Okay, I'll just add this here. He will be silent to him. Who's the him?
The buzz.
Yeah, the boss, the guy who derides him, right? Okay, so that's Sadigon.
Wait, it has to be that?
It doesn't have to be that, but that is the other person in the pasuk.
Right, the pasuk is talking about one situation.
Right,
Somebody
him
is
one
deriding
situation.
his friend.
Right, someone who derides his friend lacks a heart, but a man of understandings will be silent to him, to the one who derided.
Right. I mean, the other option is silent to his fellow.
Oh, that is the other option. I see what you mean. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. I'm biased also because I read Sadigon's commentary. Yeah. Okay. Targum says Deshat lechavre chasir rayana chasir ranahu v'gavra demizbayin shasek. Okay, so shat comes with a shoot, so this is more like the way that I wanted to translate, to make light of. So you could do that in your mind, but you can also do it like to make fun of, or to mock, to reject. So I think it is a literal translation, but I just wanted to show the gesture there. And then Rayana is person lacks a heart, means lacks desire or thought. Okay. So let me just write this here. One who lacks desire or thought. I wouldn't have translated as desire. I think Rayana is usually thoughts, like Rayanos. Okay, fine. So that's the Targum. And yeah. Then we have also I wanted to say the reason why this is why I want to show you the psukim here. So if you look at Mishlei and you look at the other psukim that talk about chasar lev, so no, if isha chasar lev mashis nafsha hu yasena. Okay, that one doesn't really have the thing I want to show you. All right, va'er v'pasayim avina babanim na'ar chasar lev. So I looked at the like gullible simpletons, I discerned among the youths, children, a youth who lacked a heart. So lacking a heart is a synonym here for, or it's associated with someone who is a gullible simpleton. Okay, 9:4. Kifesi mi pesi yasurhena chasar lev amralo. So pesi, again, a gullible simpleton, is being compared to a chasar lev. Similarly in 9:16, again, mi pesi yasurhena chasar lev erelo. Then we have our pasuk. No, sorry, we have 10:13. I didn't realize we had this before last year. Sifse navon timatse chachma v'shei give chasar lev. So navon, an understanding person, and chasar lev are opposites. Then we have 10:21. Sifse tzadik rabim ve'evilim b'chasar lev yamuso. Okay, so chasar lev is the opposite of someone who with lips of a tzaddik. Then we have our pasuk. Then we have 12:11, which is Obed Masis Balachim Radif Rekim Chasar Lev, because that one doesn't apply. Then we have 15:21, Ivel Simcha Lachasar Lev, Ish Tavuna Yayashar Lacha. So again, Chasar Lev and Ish Tavuna are opposites. This one doesn't
Ish
apply.
Tavuna, literally translating as what?
A man of understanding, which is the same as in our pasuk, only ours says Ish Tavunos. And then Koheles, you have Libo Chaser is of Amar Lakol Sachalhu. So Chasar Lev is being compared to a Sachal, which is a fool. And in the opposite of it is a Chacham Lev, which means someone with a wise mind. So the point I'm trying to make here is that like when we say heart, you have to remember that in Tanakh, heart can either mean feelings or thoughts, or like emotions or mind. But in Mishlei and Koheles, the psukim that involve like contrasting it with someone who is in like a chacham category, it usually contrasts it with a ish tavunos, a man of understanding. And when it compares it to when it's being juxtaposed with a fool, it juxtaposes it to a pesi who's like a naive simpleton. And this is so much so that Art Scroll often translates it as lacks an understanding heart. And in this pasuk it didn't do that, but yeah. So I would say that's why I would say like thought is the more likely translation for heart. Yeah, what were you say?
Like I want to attempt at getting creative. I just don't know if this strays at all into like a later process of like trying to answer stuff. But as far as defining lacking a heart, I have like a thought on maybe how we could differentiate it. Is I'm curious, see what you think. Could we maybe divide emotions into a way that we don't normally do today very often, or at least in English, between there's like emotions that are like desires, like emotions that are like that lead you astray, which is like one category, and like another kind of emotion, which is like when you have a thought and like something doesn't feel right, and you can feel that something's wrong, so like it leads you to think more about it, and like that could also be an emotion. And like in English there aren't ways to distinguish it, but maybe like they're totally different things. And so to have the emotion that leads you in thinking and the emotion that leads you astray as separate categories, and therefore in this case it could still be referring to a kind of emotion, but just categorically different than like the desire kind of emotion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely open to that understanding, or to that like type of approach. And the only thing that I would say, I would caution us, but not to the point of stifling our thoughts, that when you're dealing with like a biblical idiom like this, like chasar lev, or even the word lev, like really what this would require is like a survey of the use of the word lev and how that is. And so as long as when we try to come up with ideas like the theory you're saying, we realize like it's tentative, and the only way to test it is by like just going through many more psukim with it. But so I'm fine with speculating.
Yeah, like I was sort of thinking that as well. Like I was wondering, does Shlomo refer to the mind directly, like a head?
He does say he does, but he also uses different terms for that. Like he uses the word seichel, and he uses the word da'as, and then lev is also another one. Those are the three that I think of. I think those are the main three, or the only three. Yeah. Okay. English translations. Arsko says, "He who shames his friend lacks heart." Shame is also a good one. But a man of understanding will be silent. Living Knox says, he who humiliates his fellow lacks sense, while a man of discernment keeps silent. So I don't like this translation, because humiliate really refers, like, yes, it refers to the guy who's doing the action, but I feel like it also carries more of a connotation about like the recipient and their reaction. Like I could say, like, if I deride you, that doesn't imply any feeling on your part. But if I say I humiliated you, it does imply like a feeling on your part. And so I don't like humiliate here. Alter says, who scorns his fellow man has no sense, but a man of discernment keeps silent. Yeah, scorn is also fine. Okay. What are the questions and problems here?
Well, I'm just observing that there's no outcome really. It's just
Right.
like, there's no like consequence in this.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good question here. So what is the what are the consequences? The outcomes / consequences of either party, right?
And is there an implication of the lack of mentioning it?
Yeah. What is implied by its omission? Yeah. By this omission. I mean, we have our question that I was kind of dancing around, which is, what is the definition of buzz in this context?
Yeah. And the silent, is that like the traditional, is that the, if we were to write this pasuk, would we use that word for silent, or would we use a more common word, meaning like the connotation of a deaf or mute person? Is that like,
so it also means just to be silent, but it is but I think the primary meaning is the deaf or mute person. So in other words, like in English, you can say like well, it's interesting, because in English we say like you muted the TV, so we refer to it based on, like, I'm pretty sure mute is the we could check, hold on just 1 second here. Wait, mute etymology. This doesn't really whoa. Mutus. I didn't know a mute was a pack of hounds. Okay, fine. I guess they have to be silent. No, that's probably a different thing. All right, this is not really helping us. But what I was going with that was, in English you can say that I was silent, but in Hebrew it's like I was mute. Like it's derived from the person. But I think this is the normal way to say to be quiet. In fact, unless, hold on just a second. I wonder, is shtika? I wonder if that is what the difference is between like shtika and Yahrish, because shtika is like how we would the way you would normally say to be quiet. But I'm wondering if that's like not a biblical usage. Let me see here. Oh my goodness, there are only 4 instances in Tanakh. That's interesting. 1 in Tehillim, 1 in Mishlei. Ki yishtoku v'yanchem. Let me just click on this and see what it says for yishtok. Because that would be the word that if it does use an alternative one, that's what I think. You have to be quiet. That's interesting. And then in Mishlei, what was the example in Mishlei? Yeah, see that you will silence quarreling. That's not like being quiet.
So it's like a verb versus a state of being.
Yeah, that the verb versus a state of being. Yeah, correct. Yeah, v'yishtok, it's all of them. Yeah. So, and then, whereas if you look at Yahrish, like, let's see how many. This is not going to be a good search because it's going to also have engraving. But my guess is that there are going to be a lot more for Yahrish. But again, I don't know if this is going to help us with anything. Waiting for the results. Yeah, but I think this is a normal phrase. Another example of this. Oh yeah, yes, 155. Yeah, that's a lot. But again, not all of them are our case. The one I'm actually thinking of though that that might be familiar is at Yam Suf. Well, it's used a lot in halakha, right? Yahrish is a person, is a category in halacha. But what I was thinking is at Yam Suf, when the people like say that that it would be better for us to serve Mitzrayim than to die in the wilderness. V'yomer Moshe el ha'am al tirau. Moshe said, "Do not be afraid. Hisiyatvu uruas Yeshuas Hashem asher yasa lechem hayom. Stand and see the salvation of Hashem, who will act for you today. Ki asher re'isem es Mitzrayim hayom. You've seen Egypt today. Lo sosifu lirosam od ad olam. You will not see them again. Hashem yilachem lachem ve'atem tachrishun. Hashem will wage war for you, and you should just be quiet." Okay, which is a interesting pasuk there, but like it carries the feeling of like, and like, you guys just shut up, because they were complaining, and like whining. Okay, not to judge them. I would probably do the same thing if I thought I was going to die at the hands of Mitzrayim. Okay, so we have, what is a buzz, what is chasar leiv? We can ask the question, what does Yahrish mean exactly in this context?
And then there's the question we asked before, which is be silent to who? Meaning like,
to whom? Yeah. And why? That's kind of like the implication of the question of what are the consequences of the outcome.
Right. And then similar, I guess, to number 4 along that line of thinking is like, who are we talking to?
Yeah. Who is the audience? And I'm actually going to ask a different question here, which I think it was implied when we saw the Sadigon. What is the scenario here? And who is the audience? Like, are these two people who are interacting with each other, like Sadigon saying, or is this two different circumstances? But either way, we have to know who.
Right. And I guess that leads into the next classic question, is like the relationship between the first half and the second half.
Yeah. Oops, why did I go there? What is the relationship between,
like, give or take or opposing?
Are they two alternative choices that can be made, or does this describe an interaction?
To follow that line of thinking is it for sure and, or is it and or but here?
Right. 1 second. But oops. And we did not list our question. What is an ish tevunos? Let me put this in order here. What is an ish tevunos? And I am going to ask in parentheses, just because I don't know if this is a good question. Why is tevunos plural, right? As opposed to ish tevuna, which is like the normal phrase. Also, what is the difference? And I don't expect to answer this, but I want to register the question. The difference between ish tevunos. Wait, that's not how you spell it. Ish tevunos and navon. And navon, which is like the word for someone who is characterized by tevuna, and mavin, which is another word that is used to characterize someone with tevuna. Again, I'm not expecting to answer those because we really have to compare them, but I just want to note the question.
And then another one is like, what is the scope of derides? Because like earlier you mentioned how if it would have been humiliate, it would have shifted the focus a little bit. So is deriding just in the hands of the person who's deriding? Is it in both the hands of the person who's deriding and the one who's feeling derided? Or could it be either or? Like either you're deriding.
I'm gonna actually split this into 3 categories. That one is this verb, does this verb refer to something that occurs just in the mind, or does it imply action, or does it also imply an effect? right?
So well articulated. That was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's just how I'm viewing when you said scope. Like I'm thinking like the like circles, Okay. I think that's it, right? It's so weird with only two people,
Yeah, it's wild.
That might be a quick share. We'll get to a lot of meforshim maybe.
Yeah, there is another question. I don't have a way to form it just yet, but it's also on the parameters of the pasuk as a whole.
Yeah.
But I'm trying. It's
is that like? Would you think it'd be kind of close to in 6 when we say parameters?
Yeah, you know how like we've asked like what is the opposite of this scenario?
Yeah.
And what is like the neutral of the scenario? I guess it's kind of
Right.
like that question.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I hear the difficulty in formulating the question. Yeah.
Like when does this stop becoming true? I guess.
Right.
Meaning like
no, I like the way you said parameters. Yeah.
Is it only a matter of understanding, or is it like if you are silent even without being understanding completely?
Yeah. So let's just add. I'm going to add both of the things you said. Is there what are the parameters, and is there a middle case, right? Like if this is describing a
opposites.
Opposites. Yeah. Is there a middle case there? Yeah. Okay. I guess shall we think?
Yeah.
All righty. Oh, I should mention one thing also, by the way. I translated this as one who derides his fellow lacks a heart. You can also translate it as one who lacks a heart derides his fellow. And that's just, again, a normal Mishleic rule where in Hebrew, then, when you have a subject and a predicate like that, then it's there's like an ambiguity as to who is doing.
And I assume the same applies for the second half, like one who is silent.
So that's interesting. I don't think so, and why not? Because I think Yahrish. I think because Yahrish is a verb. I know you might say like Boz means one who derides his fellow lacks heart. Both of them are nouns. So it's
like this isn't saying a silent person. A man of understanding is a silent person. It's saying
exactly.
will be. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting. Like now, what's the implication of the versatility of one but not the other?
Yeah. And you do get, like with this second reading, you do get a better parallel if lave means thought or mind or knowledge of some sort, then a chaser lave will deride his friend, but each tvunos will be silent. That part's parallel.
Right,
but
right.
It's not the only way to read it.
Meaning, like, what's interesting about that is that the fact that it's not as versatile in the second half, almost, I feel like it might answer the last question we just asked, because it doesn't flip. It's like if you're silent, that doesn't mean you're a man of understanding. You have to be a man of understanding to be silent in this context here.
That's a good deduction. Yeah. Oh, you know what we should ask also? I mean, this is kind of implied here, but like what understanding does he possess, which is used or displayed here, right? Like in the pasukim we've done, when I was quoting like the pasukim before, like the lips of a tzaddik, I forgot whatever it said. There I remember that pasuk was like the way he talked reflected understanding. But here, I mean, first of all, he's being silent, so he's not even talking. But like understanding. I don't know. Yeah, like how is it displayed? Especially understandings. Again, I'm not going to nitpick on the plural, but like it's like, in other words, if you said a man of understanding singular, it would be easier for me to view understanding as a quality that this person has. Understandings makes it sound like he possesses lots of different kinds of like knowledge or something, like ish chacham, a man of wisdom versus a man of wisdoms. A man of wisdoms has many wisdoms. So I don't know. We also didn't ask this basic question. How does, what is the cause and effect relationship between chasar lev and baz l'reyehu? No matter which way you read the pasuk. We might as well start thinking out loud.
Okay, yeah. I
Go ahead.
definitely have some thoughts coming in.
Okay, yeah, sure. You could start us off.
Okay, so I sort of feel like the plurality of understandings, I think, implies it's like there's many situations, and that tied with where my head was starting to go with chasar lev is like trying to differentiate that kind of knowledge from other kinds of knowledge. So I sort of feel like what I was saying before is like it's the kind of emotions that lead to ideas, meaning like where you feel like you notice the feeling first, but it's like what leads you to ideas.
Are you talking, just to make sure I'm understanding, are you talking about like intuition, where like your thought is led by a certain hunch or a feeling?
Yeah, but I think I think intuition doesn't do it full justice, because I think one needs to have the emotion, be sensitive to it and be aware, and then also follow it. So intuition might capture one of like several elements that I think go into like, you remember when you had the class about on the Rambam's discussion of the qualifications of a prophet.
Yeah.
And he gives a bunch of list of things, and it's like his mind is drawn to big ideas and he's intelligent, and it was like a bunch of like qualifications like that. And then on one, it was like he has big emotions. And the idea I was suggesting then was that by having a lot of emotions, he can be reactive to smaller subtleties in reality, that if you didn't have as much emotions, he might not notice, and therefore will have a greater reflection of reality. For example, like if there's like a ground and it's like slightly sloped, and someone who's like not so sensitive would walked on it would like know that it's sloped. But if you're more sensitive, then you'll also feel like the rocks on the slope. And if you're even more sensitive, you'll feel like the grains of sand on each rock on the slope. So like each expression, each feeling of that experience of walking on the slope is a true reflection of reality. But the more sensitive you are, the greater understanding of that reality that you're going to have. And so like those emotions are allowing you to pick up on subtleties in reality and like learn from it, because you're picking up on something. And so I sort of feel like that is the kind of category maybe that like this is referring to, in the sense that it's like these emotions are allowing you to be sensitive to things that maybe other people, like there's a range, there's like high to low level of sensitivity.
Okay, so I actually should probably say something, and I don't know if this is going to help or hurt, but you have these different terms for different types of knowledge in Hebrew, right? So you have, Chachma, Bina, and Das, right? Those are three. There's other ones also, but those are three classic ones. So if you ever go into we've probably done this in Mishlei before, but like if you ever try to figure out what those terms mean, they're all extremely difficult, except for Bina. Okay, Bina is the only one that that everyone agrees with verbally with what the definition is. Okay. But there might be differences of opinion in terms of how to interpret that definition. Everyone agrees that Bina means Mevin Davar Mitoch Davar, one who understands one thing from another. Okay. Or another way of saying it is derived knowledge. All right. As opposed to received knowledge, as opposed to perceived knowledge. Tavuna involves deriving one thing from another. I think there's probably, even though it's a different shoresh, I think probably the two letter shoresh people, that crowd is going to say that it's based on bin. It's related to sorry, the shoresh of tavuna is bet yud nun, but they'll probably say it's related to bet nun hey, which is to build. Okay, is that you're taking things that you already have and you're building upon it, and that's why like the analogy that Rashi gives quotes from Chazal is, what's the difference between a chacham? This is not a joke, it just sounds like a set of a joke. What's the difference between a chacham and a navon? So he says a chacham is like a what do you call it, like a, hold on, I'm gonna just quote the Chazal,
repository of truths.
that is true. But let's see. If I go Bina, is that going to have? Yeah. Oh yeah. So this is Rashi on footnote 2. Rashi on Devarim 113. Okay, so he says Navonium, and again, Navon is not necessarily the same as each Tavonos, but they both come from Bina. This refers to Mevin Davar Mitoch Davar, inferring one thing from another. Arios asked Rabbi Yossi the question, what is the difference between Hakami and Navonium? Rabbi Yossi answered, a Chacham is like a rich money changer. When they bring him coins to examine, he examines them, but when they don't bring him coins to examine, he sits and does nothing. But a Navon is like a merchant money changer. When they bring him money to examine, he examines. When they don't bring him money to examine, he goes and brings in business on his own. So Chacham is dependent on other people for his knowledge. So he can get knowledge, but only when people give it to him. And then a Navon, though, can do that, and he can also go out and like generate new stuff, and that's the idea of like Mevin Davar Mitoch Davar.
Interesting. So I feel like the way my mind was going on this, like on this, in this pasuk, is that the having a heart or lacking a heart is close to the ability or lack of ability of the Navon, but it's more situational. So in a situation that something arrives, someone with a heart will feel something in the situation and then think about it and gain knowledge from it. And someone without a heart won't feel whatever there is to feel in that situation and won't think about it and won't gain knowledge.
Yeah. I just got to stop and express my astonishment for a second. It is very interesting how your mind works, because like you're starting, and I know your mind was already going in this place from the beginning, but like, it's interesting how you're starting from the terms that are the most unclear in the pasuk. Like I would, and I know different minds go in different directions, but like I would have started from like, what is the case of a person deriding his friend? Like because that at least like we have like more concrete like we can like talk about scenarios, and then from there say, well, what's the relevance of a chasar lev in each two minutes? I'm not trying to discourage you from your path. I'm just like I was just, as you're talking, I was just like, man, I would not have started there. And not only you started with the plural of tavunos, like the one place I kept on saying I'm not going to start there. That's why it's good to have different ways of thinking.
That is interesting. I think maybe why like this is now like going to like a meta level of thought. But like I feel like maybe part of why I'm drawn to that approach is I feel like I can get more of like a universal approach, like a idea that then can be applied on many scenarios, where if I define the scenario first, I would feel like I'd be like I might be potentially limiting the.
And see, that's exactly why I want to approach it this way, because the other two terms for what you just described is like a top-down approach and a bottom-up approach. Like top-down is like you construct the universal, and then like fill out
I
the
hear that.
details.
Yeah, I hear
Yeah,
you. I
right,
don't know.
right,
I'm
yeah,
just gonna
and
follow.
and the approach that I'm taking is a much more conservative approach of like, starting with what you know for sure and then building up from there. But
Right.
yeah, interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So should I just
No, keep going.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. Okay, cool.
I just wanted to point out like
Yeah,
differences.
no,
in
no, I think
terminology
that's
here.
very interesting. I wasn't aware that that's what I was doing, but that's interesting.
Yeah.
So taking that like approach of like of what it means to like have a heart, I feel like in a situation where well, I think I'm going to jump around to different ideas before like I try sewing the pieces together. Is I think that part of why it's not talking about like the repercussions necessarily is that I think that this is more focusing on the person who has the option to deride or not to deride his fellow, and not necessarily in the sense of like what's the social ramifications, but it's more of like what's the ramification on himself, or like what's happening with him. And to me what that implies is that like this could be a situation where derision is warranted,
Right.
so it's not like a person who goes out and like unfairly is mean to everybody and derides them, because I feel like that would imply a slightly different pasuk focus on like how everybody's going to hate this guy. But like this is arguably, at least in one possible extreme of what this scenario could be, a situation where derision is warranted. And so now you have two options. You have a person who has a heart and a man of understanding, and a person who lacks a heart. And to me, it's going to be one person is going to be like feeling something out of the situation of saying like, what is going on here? Like, what is this person doing? Why am I reacting this way? Like, and they're going to be caught up in trying to understand what's going on and thinking about it. And it's not like they're going to have to hold themselves, like, it's not like they're holding themselves back. That's why I think he uses this word of like this silent instead of like being quiet, is that he's caught up in thinking about his ideas. So it happens to be that he's silent because he's caught up in like gaining knowledge.
Okay, so just to remind you that the word Yahrish, let me just go back to the translation I showed in all Torah, that Yahrish can mean to be silent, dumb, or speechless, or deaf, but it could also mean to devise or to, I would have added the word to think there also, so that could be why it uses this term, that it means he will be silent in thought, like he'll be like silently thinking or contemplating,
Yeah, that's perfect ammunition.
Let me just I know you're still going here. Yeah, I just want to make sure I got the scenario correctly. So oops, sorry, hold on. I'm gonna type out two scenarios here. So scenario number one, which is what you're saying here, is in a situation where derision is like warranted, and
I would say even warranted.
Even warranted, you say?
Yeah, meaning like even warranted means like, of course, if it's not warranted, but even if it is warranted.
Okay, so
I would phrase it a little differently, meaning the situation is a person deciding to deride someone or not. The people that decide to deride falls into chasar lev. The people who decide not are ishtavunos.
Yeah. So let me try to incorporate a little bit of let me try to find a middle ground here. Even in a situation where a person could be derided. Okay, I'm just going to keep it vague like that. One who lacks a heart will deride him, but a man of understandings will silence himself.
I will say will be silent, because yeah.
From deriding him though, right?
Will be silent from deriding him, meaning like he'll be busy thinking, so he won't deride him.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. And then now scenario two, which we kind of alluded to when we asked question number 7, I just want to type it out here, is that I'm just going to use the Hebrew. A chasar lev will deride his fellow, but if his fellow is an ish tevunos, he will be silent. Okay, that's yeah.
Wait, the he will be silent is the ish tevunos will be silent, not the guy with
yeah. So if I say, but yeah, I think that's it. Okay, yeah. Leave and then a
maybe add in brackets after silent, like he won't respond. Like,
okay, yeah.
You know, just to clarify who's
I'm responding. Yeah. Okay. I think so. So I think these are 2 distinct ways to learn. Okay. So did you have more to say on your approach here?
Well, yeah. It just to wrap up the first half. So like a person who, a person who lacks a heart, they won't be picking up on the nuances of the situation. They won't be trying to learn from it, and so they're just going to go straight to like deriding this person.
Yeah. So, can we just have an example to work with here? It's just easier to have an example.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's say someone makes a mistake and does something stupid. And a person who lacks a heart is there. They'll be like, how could you do that? That was so stupid.
Right.
You should have thought about it. You should have paid more attention. You should have this, you should have that.
Right.
A person who is a man of understanding will say like, okay, well, why did that happen? Could we have given better instructions? Could I have like adjusted the situation? Could I see this differently? Can I turn this, situation around or like,
Yeah. So, I'm almost tempted to read the pasuk. I know I can't like fully lean into this because of the point I made about the Yahrish part. It's almost, I wonder if like it's almost like the chasar lev and ish tevunos is the outcome of the decision. And what I mean by that is like in a situation where a person is deridable, or whatever. So there's gonna be one kind of person who mocks that person, and all of the energy is just like expended in putting them down, and as a result, they will not gain knowledge. They will be lacking in knowledge. So it might stem from a lack of knowledge, but they're also going to be lacking knowledge. Whereas a person who is characterized by understanding will be prompted to think into the scenario and will gain understanding. So
it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you're going to get more. There's actually, hold on. There's a great chazal in this quoted by the Robag in this week's parsha. If I'm right, that'd be amazing. No, it's in last week's parsha. Let me just find it. Hold on just a second, because it's relevant. It's last week's parsha because it was talking about
self-perpetuating is a better word than
yeah. So that is a better word. Bezalel, doesn't Bezalel show up in last week's parsha? Yeah, Bezalel. So it says, oh, here we go. So the pasuk says, so, and in the mind of every person who is wise of mind, I have given chachma. Okay, so that's what the pasuk says. It's talking about, it's talking about building the Mishkan. But the Rabag on that says, this is a great phrase, Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu nosin chachma ela lemi sheyesh lo chachma. God only gives chachma to someone who has chachma. Okay. Shneur says of lev kol chacham lev nasati chachma. Oh, you know what? There's a Mishlei pasuk that says this. Hold on. A Mishlei pasuk that says, wait for it. Reishis chachma knei chachma uv'chol kinyancha knei bina. The beginning of wisdom is to acquire wisdom, and in all of your acquisitions, acquire understanding. I don't know what that pasuk means, but that's the type of self-fulfilling prophecy that the self-perpetuating thing that I'm saying here is if you are the type of person who is oriented towards understanding, trying to derive, and again, let's use our term here, trying to derive, and I'll go with your plural thing because I like it. Trying to derive nuanced understandings from the scenario. So then when you see someone who could be mocked, instead of devoting your energy to mocking them, you'll devote your energy to like trying to understand whatever it is you can learn from the scenario, and you'll become even more of an ish tavunos. But if you're the person who lacks an understanding mind, then you're just going to be given to mockery, and you're not going to gain any understanding, you know?
Yeah, I really like that. You're sparking another question and maybe a potential answer. Which is why in this scenario then, like now that like in this like these two self-perpetuating cycles of like lacking a heart and becoming a man of understanding, why is it specifically the case of the potential of deriding someone that we're talking about? Meaning, like, isn't this more universal than just when the opportunity arises that you could deride someone?
Yeah, but the thing is that you got to remember how Mishlei works. Is that Mishlei speaks to the emotions, and the emotions care about particulars. You know, so there are lots of pasukim about tavuna and about how the man of understanding gains understanding from this, and then from that, and from that, and from, But here it's talking about a specific case, and I think we do need to think about that, which is that like. I think in a situation where someone, like the situation you gave is a very good example. Someone fails, and people are so quick to get caught up in putting that person down. It could even be themselves, but like that's not what we're talking about here. But like putting the person down when, like, it is just such a better investment to like, okay, take all that energy and even the negativity or. There's okay, it's kind of like not every situation is like this, but there is a phenomenon sometimes of like a rubbernecking with someone who has failed, and the real rubberneckers will laugh and make fun and deride and mock, but your attention is already geared towards this person. Like, why not use that? Channel all of that into like thinking about what you can learn from this person, what you can learn about psychology, what you can learn about decision making, what you can learn about yourself. Like, let's say you're drawn. Here's another way to do it. Let's say you're drawn to mocking this person. Well, someone who realizes the Chazal's principle of kol ha posel b'mumo posel. Anyone who points out a blemish in someone else is really like prompted by their own blemishes, or projection. Ask yourself, why do I feel like this urge to mock this person? Like, what does that say about me? What is it in me that feels the need to like break identification with this person or to like lord it over this person? And so to me, like, yeah, a person of understanding will try to gain understanding from everything, but this is a specific emotional scenario where you're drawn in one way, and to be able to override that and then direct your energy to gaining understanding is like that's a real separate decision. Like that's
Yeah. So I like that. And I think my thought might be kind of similar to that, which is that like there are these like general self-perpetuating cycles in other areas too. But what's unique about a situation where there's an opportunity to deride someone is that it's almost like close to that idea of like having a heart or lacking a heart, of like you're taking emotions and you're channeling emotions into gaining knowledge. And so when an opportunity arises to deride someone, one way or another, you feel emotion, right? This person messed up and like now it's affecting you negatively, and you just want to deride them. Like you just want to lash out your emotions and like put them down. And so if you take that same emotional intensity and you channel that to like thinking of an idea, you might get further in your thinking than you would otherwise. If it was just like, like a puzzle, it's different than if you're like fueled by emotion to like figure it out. And so it's giving an archetype in a situation that's like emotions are very clear. It's like, here's a situation where you're going to get fueled by a whole bunch of emotions, and you can either feed into this self-perpetuating cycle, or you can feed into that self-perpetuating cycle. And that's just like a blueprint for other situations which might have less fuel even.
Right. That's true. That's good. Yeah. So that type of universalizing from the situation, first of all, that's a good universalizing, right? But like, I think that's a good example of how Mishlei, like, okay, you have the broadest universalization, which is a man of understanding will gain knowledge from everywhere. Big whoop. That's not going to help you do anything, right? Then you've got this very, very particular situation, which is when you see a situation where you could mock and other people are mocking, take that emotion that is channeled in and like use it to gain understanding. And then you could go one level more universal, which is any situation where your emotions are heavily like awakened or triggered or like harnessed, then you could like pull the same move here, you know? That's like a good like one step away from the particular. Yeah. Okay, that's good. I was going to quote an example of this. I'm going to give an example of this. Let me just see if I can find it on my computer. If not, I'll find it online. So this is the story which one of my students, I can't get this nickname of the story out of my mind now. One of my students dubbed this the peeing on the Rambam story because she thought that the story was about the Rambam as opposed to just being a story that the Rambam told. Let me see if I can find it here. No.
Okay, is this the one in the boat or something?
In the boat, yeah, right. Yeah, I'm just gonna read it. I'm not gonna put it on the screen because I can't find the edition that I want on the screen, but I do have to search for where it is though. Hold on. This is it's on Pirkei Avos about Shval Ruach, about being very, very humble. Yeah, so this is in Daled in Pirkei Avos, where the Ram talks about humility, and he's talking about he tells a story about the guy who told the story about how he reached a true level of humility. It's not a very long story, but I just want to read it because I think he makes this point. Well, yeah, so he says, I forgot how long this Rambam is. Oh my goodness, it's very long. Okay, hold on. If I can't find it immediately, then I'm gonna close. Oh no, I'm in the wrong one. That's why there's two long ones here. Yeah, here we go. Found it. So he's quoting another Musar book, and I don't know. I don't know where this is, but he says, yeah. So they asked this guy this question: what was the happiest day of your life? Okay, Amar, he said, Yom Asher Hayisi Nosea B'Sfina, the day I was traveling by ship. And my place on the ship was the lowest of places, like in the hull or whatever. And I was dressed in like worn out garments. And there were people who were merchants and very wealthy on the same ship. I was lying down in my place, and one of the rich guys got up to urinate. And this guy like was impacted. It was was influenced by my lowliness and the inferior situation I was in. To the point where he exposed himself and urinated on me. And I marveled at the strength of the quality of like brazenness in this guy's soul. And in truth, I was not pained in my heart at all by his actions, and no emotion was aroused in me. Az, and at that moment, simachti simcha gadola shehigati ad kidei shelo hirgizuni zulzul oso hachaser. Well, he calls him a chaser. That fits in. I was happy about the fact that I reached this level where I was not incited by the degrading act of this degenerate, this person who was lacking. And I didn't pay attention to him. So that's an example. Like this guy was mevazeh in action, with the greatest bizui by urinating on him. And what did he do? Not only was he not affected, but he was like, what an interesting person this guy is who would do something like this, like I was like, how brazen must you be to do this, and the fact that he was able to like extricate his ego, that's a high level. And again, that's not what we're talking about. Like, I mean, look, it could be what we're talking about. You could say, you could apply this, you know what? You could apply this to the other way of reading this also, right? If someone mocks you, then if you are an ish tevunos, you're going to use that as an opportunity to be silent in thought and gain from what he's doing, from what your reactions are. And yeah, you won't respond back, right?
That's cool. Yeah, like you can apply it to both. That is cool. Like that's the flexibility of the pasuk lends itself to the flexibility of the idea.
Intentional vagueness.
Yes, intentional vagueness, the intentional ambiguity. Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
I was thinking in similar line, and like Zach, the way I was thinking of it was keep your enemies close, your friends close, and your enemies closer. Meaning, it's saying that in any situation of derision, whether you seek derision or someone's deriding you, silence will result in understandings of yourself, the others, and the situation.
Yeah, so the proper response when someone mocks you, when your enemy mocks you, you should respond, you're saying good, say better. Yeah, right.
That's witty. The smart guy stays silent.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, so that works out also. Okay. Where are we at now? I mean, this is a pretty good interpretation.
Yeah. Should we go through the questions and see if we address
let's
all
do
of
that.
them?
Okay, so what is the definition of buzz in this context? So this
Wait,
really
just as a side note, I don't know if it's just me, but the screen didn't change back to.
Oops,
Yeah, it's still on Avataro.
All right, thank you. Okay, so what is the definition of buzz in this context? Does the verb refer to something that occurs just in the mind or action, or does it also apply in effect? So the way we're doing it, it would apply, it could be for all of them, right? Like if you feel compelled to look derisively on someone with your mind, but instead you think into it, then that's good. Or if you feel compelled to say something, or if you're compelled to act in a certain way, like I think it applies for all of them. What is chasar lev? So chasar lev really is you lack a mind that is going to be seeking nuanced derived knowledge, right?
That's what I'm wondering. That was the one term that I wasn't so sure on. Is there any ground to say chasar lev is like self-controlled?
I've never seen it that way. I think people who are chasar lev often lack self-control, like that. We saw this specifically in Mishlei, that a pesi is also called a chasar lev, and he does lack self-control, like he's just moved by his emotions. So if it, in other words, if it's in self-control, let's put it this way: I've never seen it used in self-control in the sense of like self-control that stems from just like failure to master your instincts. It's much more like you're drawn by the impressions of whatever is in front of you, which could be in thought also.
Led by whims.
Yeah, led by whims, right. So what was I gonna say? So lacking a mind, I think, is lacking an understanding mind. It's like I said, like chacham lev or lev, like lev lahavin is a term that is used, like a heart, a mind of understanding. I think that's the type of lev it's talking about that you lack. Okay, what's the cause and effect relationship between chasar lev and baz lev? So the way we explain it is it goes both ways. If you were chasar lev, then you will mock your friend, and mocking your friend will lead you to remain or be even more chasar lev. What is ish tevunos? What understanding does he possess, which is used or displayed here? Why is it plural? What's the difference between ish tevunos and a Navonium and a Navonium? we didn't answer that last question, but we did answer ish tvunos is someone who is seizing every opportunity to gain nuanced understanding from what's in front of him. And what's being displayed here is not just an intellectual ability, it's the fact that he can harness his energy to invest it in thinking about the thing critically to get new knowledge and get multiple knowledges. Yeah. What does Yahrish mean in this context? So I think it works out really well. It means he is silent from mocking, certainly. He's silent in thought. And Yahrish, again, if Harash means to be silent and also to like mull over thoughts, then it is a good word to use. What are the outcomes or consequences of either party? What's implied by the omission? So the omission is just a very nice way of showing the self-perpetuating outcomes, and that's what they are, right? You gain more knowledge and not. And by the way, not only will you gain more knowledge, but there are other pasukim in Mishlei that have the negative consequences of mocking people. So you're going to save yourself if you are a person who's inclined to mock people and deride them. That's going to bring lots of consequences and lots of bad midos, in addition to depriving you of this knowledge. So you're going to save yourself if you invest in silent meditation, instead of mocking people. You're going to save yourself from all the other consequences of engaging in mockery.
Right.
So,
and the other potential element of like the reason for omission is that this could include, I don't know about the other, like, I don't know if this implies something to the other pasukim, but it could include even where derision is quote unquote warranted. Not
right.
that it ever really is, but
yeah, right. Correct. Yeah. Like for example, if you see a person mocking someone else, that person is worthy of derision, right?
Well,
like,
that's interesting though, because the question is like, do you hold silent? That's
yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like so if you saw this play out in real life, you would sit there and then use it as an opportunity to review our pasuk,
Well, but I'm actually curious in practicality is like if someone is hurting someone by deriding them,
oh right,
then
you would not be silent.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think lean towards silence.
It depends. I mean, if Moshe intervened to stop an Egyptian from beating a Hebrew, if you see someone verbally abusing someone else, and you could stop it, then you should stop it. You could always think later. Yeah.
I'd say that Moshe is a level beyond Ish Tavuna, meaning
right. He is, but Zach's scenario is not stemming from the Ish Tavuna part, right? It's stemming from the fact that someone is being hurt and you should stop it.
Well, let me put it a little differently. Seems to me that Ish Tavuna is a meditative state in which a person is coming to understandings about reality, which Moshe must have been before he was at the process of getting up and deciding one side was just and the other side was unjust. Mm-hmm. And his compulsion to act is more like in the realm of like Tzidkus or Nevuah, of like now he's filled with the wisdom that he has. If you have that, good, and I can't stop you. Nothing would stop you. You would get up and stop it. But two, I'd also say that through halacha, we would say that we have Nevuah filling us up with tzidkus, and we have like whatever legal reasoning that's already been thought through and we're familiar with, and then we act or don't act based upon whatever the halacha dictates.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Okay, and then 7, what's the scenario and who's the audience? So the scenario here we said applies to both when you have a third party that could be mocked or could be thought silently of and gaining understanding, or when someone mocks you and you are tempted to either like mock them back or like respond back or like sit and think on it, then you could do that. And that answers what's the relation between the two halves and are they alternate choices? What are the parameters and is there a middle case? I mean, the middle case is the person who witnesses this mocking situation. And I mean, it's interesting, right? Because I feel like unless you are unfeeling, you are going to be drawn to either just invest your energy in looking down on this person or using it as a case for learning. Like like the people who don't go so far as to mock, what are they doing in their minds? Like someone gets up on stage and makes a fool of themselves, you know? So there are people who like there are people who have other emotional reactions that just are not involved in like trying to gain understanding. And I think those would all fit into the first half of the pasuk, even if they're not mocking.
Right. My inclination is like the middle cases would be either doing both or neither. Meaning if you're silent but not coming to any understandings, or if you're coming to understandings, but you also can't help yourself but say something as well.
Right.
Like the Ibn Ezra who mocks all the people who he disagrees with, but like you gain understanding from it. Yeah.
I mean, I would say my first answer is that there's not really much of a middle case, but I do think that there's a bit of a middle case in like a person that is not an ish tabunos, that like I would probably characterize it as picking a side. If a person is listening and they're not really understanding, they're simply siding with the victim or siding with the oppressor based upon whatever their psychological dynamic is, they're not learning from the situation, and they're kind of engaging in the derision by being swayed by it one way or the other, but they're
So
not.
are you introducing another party? It sounds like you're introducing an audience now, right? Meaning like so far we were talking about.
Well, no, I would say it would even if in a 1-2 dynamic. I mean, let's say I'm deriding somebody. I think there would have to be. No, it would work either way. I'm deciding whether or not to deride somebody. If I'm an ish tabuna, I think into this scenario and I think of what went wrong and what I could have done, and I gain understanding. If I am in the middle case, I say he's wrong, or I say I'm right, or I say I'm wrong. Like I just like come to that conclusion, and I'm not being open to all of the things that I can understand. I'm basically taking a side. I'm being sort of tribal. Or if I'm watching the scenario,
but is that in your mind, or are you verbalizing it?
Well, that's why I'm saying that the middle case is a state of silence. It's a state of silence that is not being open to understanding. That's why I think
it's like silent but not learning. Right.
Just a silent observer. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. All right. So we answered all of our questions. I just have another example of this, by the way, that after shall have it close, then the students, a bunch of the 9th and 10th graders, well, not a bunch, all of them went to other schools, pretty much, and so like a lot of them fully then realized like what they had taken for granted in Shalhavet of like having all these teachers who were like, like thinkers. So they found themselves in situations with teachers with crazy ideas, and so they would when these students would talk with me, they would often like complain or like make fun of these teachers. And the advice I would give them is like, yeah, you can make fun of the teachers, and like it's entertaining and stuff, but like, you would gain more if you like ask yourself, what is this person's philosophy? What is this person's like, what is, their belief system? What is driving them to think or act in the way that they are trying to act? And like, I didn't know this idea, but like, I was consciously trying to tell them to like, their mockery is not going to get them anywhere, and in fact, I think it's going to feed unhealthy tendencies, because then they're just going to end up feeling not holier than thou, but like smarter than thou, and they're just going to sit there and they're not going to develop. And they're going to, since they're stuck in these classes, they're going to be stuck in these classes for a year, just sitting and just rolling their eyes at this teacher. But why don't you just take that scenario and like actually like learn from it, use them as, if you think they're wrong, so then what do you think the actual right view is? Like, how would you argue with them? Play out a dialogue in your head. There's so many things you can do when you have a bad teacher, both for the content and in terms of like the educational malpractice, that you can like gain from.
100%. And I feel like that scenario is actually common, or at least the first half of it is like, you have that kid who's like really clever and maybe more clever than the teacher. And so he can poke a hole in the teacher's argument or the lesson and kind of like show derision towards the teachings of the teacher. Or he could try to like just pause and think like, okay, well, how would I answer myself? Or like, how would I, and then actually gain knowledge rather than just wasting the opportunity.
Yeah.
I also wanted to comment, it makes sense that it's ish to vunos, meaning the situation here is if you engage in the derision, you're cutting off pieces of data that you can put together to understand more.
Right.
So it's saying you're limiting yourself of collecting evidence and information.
That's true. That's a good nuance also. Yeah. All right. Nice. All right. So shall we do some meforshim?
Sounds good.
Okay. So let's do. So let's. Let's look at Rבינו Yona. He caught my eye. Okay. Rבינו Yona says. Let me make this the right size. Okay. Mi baz l'rehu chaser lev. Mishu baz l'chavero chaser levhu. Someone who I will say disparages his friend lacks a heart. Kizos amida taid al musaro. Maybe you're right, Michael, that this indicates lack of control. That might be the way he's going. Let's see, because he says kizos hamida taid al musaro. This trait of mocking people reflects his musar, his ethical imperfection, or his discipline. Let's see how he uses the term. Gam tait al chesron dato, and it also indicates a lack of knowledge. Kamosh amru chazal, alti baz l'chol adam alti maflig l'chol davar. So this is what caught my attention, and we might actually. I don't know if this is going to take us far afield. I was actually just looking this up right before Shiur. Let me just find it. So there's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that says Nezikin Avos Dalid. What does it say? Dalid Gimel. Yeah, this is a weird one. Who is this? Ben Azai Omer. Who I Omer Alti Baz l'chol Adam and Alti Maflig l'chol Davar. Do not ma'ak or deride any person, and don't maflig l'chol Davar. How do we translate maflig? How do they translate maflig here? And do not.
Isn't it like fight?
That's a good guess because of plugsa, but do not be dismissing of anything. That's how they translate it. I don't know where they're getting that from. She'ein lecha adam she'ein lo shav, ein lecha davar she'ein lo makam. There's no person who doesn't have his time, and no thing without its place. Okay, I don't know what the relevance of that is. Is there Rבינו Yona on this that is short? Because if he's quoting it, then maybe he's got something there. Oh, very short. That's like what Zach was saying. You shouldn't disparage a person, even someone who's nikle, which means like someone who's like despicable, like who's despise worthy, right? So he translates maflig as saying, don't be maflig your words, saying it is improbable that this harm could come to me through this statement. So I don't know how he's translating maflig your words, but like, yeah.
I mean, that reminds me of like a line in a movie where it was a Tarantino movie, and he said, "You can't trust Natalie, but you can trust Natalie to be Natalie."
Yeah, right.
Right, meaning even if it's an odious person that's not trustworthy, people have utility in some capacity, and if you are an ish tvunos, you will see the usefulness of even a despicable person. Okay, I mean that's not what he. I mean that's a good shot. I don't think that's what he's saying here, because he's saying. Okay, well let's see, because he says she'ein lecha adam she'ein lo shah. So there's no person without his time. So that I'd be inclined to say what you're saying, which is a time when you can use him. He's saying she'ein lecha adam she'ein lo shah sheyuchol lahazik. Oh no, he does say olahoil, or to help you. That there's no person without his time where he can harm you or help you. Ima advim harbe, whether a little or a lot. So you're correct there. And there's no thing without its place that you need to be careful of. All right, fine. So that seems to be saying. See, I don't. Here's the question with Rבינו Yona. Whenever he quotes Pirkei Avos, he has a commentary in Pirkei Avos. But I don't know if he intends you to learn the Mishlei in conjunction with his commentary on Pirkei Avos. So I wanted to read it just in case, but I'm not so sure. Well, let's see where he goes with the Mishlei though. Chasar lev yikare al chesron hamidos v'hamusar. So chasar lev indicates lack of midos and discipline. For example, noif isha chasar lev, someone who commits adultery lacks a heart. Liknos chachma v'lev ayin, someone who wants to acquire chachma but doesn't have a heart. Al derech v'shomea tochachas kone lev, and one who listens to rebuke acquires a heart. V'chein yikar chaser lev al chesron hadas,
ki Yona pota ein leiv. So leiv basically he's saying means perfection of midos or knowledge. So if you mock a friend, you lack midos and you lack knowledge. Okay, so let's see what he does the second half. Vish timunos Yahrish ki yavin asher zeh chasar leiv. So he will understand that this guy is a chasar leiv in miderech kvodo la'anoso pen yishvelo, and it's not befitting of his dignity to respond to him lest people equate him with him. So he's taking the scenario where like someone mocks you, and if you are an ish tuvunos, then you will not respond because you realize, okay, this guy is just a chasar leiv. It's beneath my dignity to respond because people will think that I'm like him. Vashenis, and the second reason, ki dayo bamesh yizgala ze al chesron dato. It's enough that this guy revealed his own chaser das, okay? V'hei b'nafsho shu chaser leiv, and he's testified about himself that he's chaser leiv. You know, like in other words, let this guy make a mockery of himself. You know, I don't need to mock him. He's basically like revealing to everyone that he's a chaser leiv. So this is what I was thinking of when I said in the description that it's talking about bullying. You know, that if someone is verbally abusing you, so that's stemming from a lack of midos on their part and a lack of knowledge on their part. And it's saying that if you engage them, so then it is, people will just think that you're the same as them, you know. And this guy is testifying about himself that he is chaser leiv. So like, let him make a mockery of himself, so to speak.
Yeah, I feel like there might be a nuance here. If we're going with the scenario of like bullying, that the word of like keeping silent versus being quiet, I think might play a role here in differentiating between the scenario. Meaning, if a person can tap into like their internal thought process, kind of like that guy on the boat, where he's like just mentally marveling at the situation or like the despicableness of this person, or brazenness, then the silent, being silent seems like a good approach. But if a person inside is feeling really hurt, I don't know that the right move is to silence your hurt. You know, there's a silence of following the mental dialogue, and then there's like forcing yourself not to like assert your feelings.
Well, I think that's the
I think are different.
Meaning the guy that actually is hurt, he will be compelled to act or something. He's not going to be an ish tuvunos because he's going to be focusing on his pain, which is why sometimes they would lash out or just not be able to think through the scenario because he's emotionally invested.
Well, yeah, although I'm trying to differentiate a little bit between this new scenario and what we were saying before, which is in this case, there's someone who's bullying someone, right? So like it's a little bit outside of like it's a more specific case, and like now you have like a perpetrator and you have a victim, and a victim I think has justifications to assert their feelings, meaning like we are born with feelings and that's okay. And if someone is putting you down, I think there is a scenario where it's okay to say, you know, that doesn't, you know, like that's not okay how you're treating me. It's, you know, whatever. So I think that the being silent is, and you're right, maybe a person who asserts their feelings is going to lose out on knowledge. That might be true, but there's another situation where like being silent is good, and that's when you're able to go where the response is not a feeling response but a mental response, where you're like thinking about things and, you know, mulling it over, and therefore because you're mulling it over, you're silent.
Yeah, I want to read a couple more people who take the same kind of approach as Rבינו and Yona, just to see if we can. I'm not committed to learning like specifically the way he's learning it right now, but I want to just find other people who take a similar approach, and then maybe we could come up with our own. Hold on. Who else did I see? Okay, no. Malbin maybe. No. Oh, by the way, I did. I want to show you Malbin's translation of Yahrish. He says, "Hacharisha who have I think it's supposed to say aniya b'hatshuva." So he's saying, silencing yourself is opposite from responding, meaning it means muting yourself from responding. Okay, like he quotes the Yahrish ha'am v'lo anu oso davar. The people silenced themselves and didn't respond. So that is different than the way we were translating respond. That's like here, yeah, we were saying you are silent and and contemplating. He's saying you are silent and not responding.
It's like holding back your retort.
Yeah, holding back. Right. Is this it? All right, let's look at the Meiri. I think the Meiri maybe had something like this. Okay, maybe not though. We'll see. He gave several interpretations. This is talking to the intelligent person. That no person should be despicable in their eyes. To the point where you make light of him or disparage him or mock him. Like Goliath to David, right? So Goliath mocks David. I just want to read.
My dog that you come to me with sticks.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, right.
Good insult.
And Ha'am L'Shaol. This one I just looked up right before Shiur also.
Yeah, I saw Rashi reference that. It's like literally a parallel.
Yeah. So the pasuk says, after Shaul became king, it says, Uvenei V'lial Amru. So lawless men said, Ma Yoshinu Zeh. How can this guy save us? Vayivizuhu, and they disparaged him. V'lo heviu lo mincha, and they didn't bring him a tribute. Vayihi kamacharish, and he remained silent. Okay. Which side point, I was looking at this in the Rabag. Rabag actually has a good example of nuance here. Okay, because so this is in the Rabag and the Taulos where he gives the lessons that you learn from this. So he says, Hashiva Sarhu, the 17th lesson you learn from this is Lahodia she'ein roy l'shalem she'is pa'el v'mish yomru ha'anashim kenegdo. It's not proper for a perfected person to be emotionally affected by what people say against him. Koshkin she'is pa'el im lo yichabduhu. All the more so, you shouldn't be emotionally affected if they don't honor you. Okay, aval roy she'yis bolzeh. It's proper for you to tolerate what they say, what they do. Ulazeh, and for this reason, Siper Shaul, the pasuk says that Shaul haya kamachrish al habizyonos shibizuhu harashayim ahem, that Shaul was silent against the degradations that these evil people degraded him with. The al mashlo heviu lo mincha im shezeh, and on the fact that they didn't bring him a mincha. Okay, check this out now. Im shezeh gam haya ro'ilo mipnei heyoso ata b'haschalas hamlucha. Even though he should have responded because he was at the beginning of his kingship, and it could be that a slight thing would cause them to take away the kingship from him. So it's interesting. He's praising Shaul for his midos, but saying that he made the wrong decision. And this was one of Shaul's faults, is that he didn't assert himself enough. So midos wise, it was good that he didn't allow himself to be affected by the fact that these people were degrading him. But because he was king, he shouldn't have let them trample on his kavod because it was a danger to the monarchy.
I was going to say a similar thing by David, because even though Goliath was insulting him, one, it seems like his primary goal was to talk to the Am and use this as like an educational thing. But he also tells Goliath that he's going to cut his head off. And it seems like that's the difference between like the Mida perfection of silence and the like Navi role of actively utilizing this as an educational moment.
Right. So there's side dealing comments on David. So we'll go back to that in a little while. So far, just to repeat the Meiri, he's saying that the intelligent person should not let anyone be so degraded in his eyes that he makes light of him, mocks him, or derides him, as Goliath did with David and the people did with Shaul. So in other words, Goliath was making that mistake about David of like underestimating him and mocking him, and a few moments later he loses his head. And then the people were making this mistake about Shaul. Okay, the Yaches laosezos choser lev. It attributes this to the quality of lacking a heart. Ki bezeh tevayer eish chamaso umisnakel alav v'chol es. Because through this, meaning if you do make light of someone or mock them or deride them, their fire will, the fire of their wrath will burn in them, and they will look for ways to like get back at you at all times. Al sharashe raglav yischake. That's based on Eov 13:27. Let's see what that phrase means. Something about burning the feet. 1327. Okay, it's a poetic thing that you place my feet in fetters, scrutinize on my ways, and inscribe my very footsteps. Okay, I don't know what he's using that for. And turns out you are going to endanger yourself for no reason. Oh, sorry. So what he means is like this. He's saying like this. If you, it sounds like he's saying like in action, because like the guy's going to respond to you. Like if you mock someone or make light of them or insult them or slight them in some way, then like that person might harbor this feeling of retaliation, and it's going to come back to bite you. Isn't there? I've only seen the movie once, but in the movie 300, wasn't there some like hunchback or like disfigured guy who got mocked by the head of something, and
right, he wanted to join the army, and they said that he couldn't because it was too dangerous. But he felt insulted, and as a result, he went to the other side and explained to them how to get through.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Or another more common example than betraying an army is when bosses mistreat employees, and then the employees quit, and then they go and like they badmouth the company or the boss or whatever. So that's one reason why you shouldn't do this. So again, this is a very Mishleic reason, right? Like not like so you can learn, like what we said, not like because it's unjust, but like they're gonna go back and they're gonna want to take revenge. So
it's interesting because I agree. It does seem very Mishleic, but to me it seems like it's almost begs the question, which is, if this is the approach Shlomo was intending us to take, then why didn't he structure it like the other Mishlei pasukim, which is like this causes that?
Right. Yeah. I mean, meaning why did he omit the consequences?
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. that's true. All right. So he says, "V'chein shehazman mishapech tamid." Also, times change. Mashpil af meromim. They lower people and they raise people. V'ula yisabiv al atzmo masha asa l'riehu. Maybe the thing that you did to your friend will come about to you, right? So that's the other thing also, is like whenever you deride someone from a superior position, your unstated premise is you're always going to be like that and I'm always going to be like this, but the situations can reverse themselves very quickly, like Yosef and his brothers, right? I mean, without going into who was at fault. Okay, v'alzeh amar v'ish tuvunos Yahrish. That's why it says a man who of understandings will be silent. Kinyan machrish ladas. So it's like machrish ladas. Oh, is that Yosef and his brothers? No, wait. What's machrish ladas? 24:21. Where is that? Bereshit 24:21. What's the context?
Sounds like Abraham era.
Is it Machrish? Yeah, Abraham. Wait, what is it? 21. Oh, sorry, 24:21. Oh no, this is Eliezer.
Oh.
Yes, Eliezer went to so Vatmer Vatar Kada El Hashovis Vatar's Ode El Habe'er Lishov. So this is when she's giving water to his camels. V'ha'ish Mishtaila, and the man, presumably Eliezer, what's Mishtai mean? Waited? Oh, gazed. He looked after her. Machrish Ladas Hahitzlich Adashim Darko Imlo. Silently waiting to know whether God would make his way succeed or not. So silently waiting to know. Is that what Meiri's trying to get out of this? I lost Meiri. Machrish does Klomar. Oh, here he is. Misbonin ba'atma umakave lakach. He will contemplate by himself and await this. Kain ish tuvunos yisbonin ki chalifos hazman v'tahupochosav rabos. A man of understanding will realize that times change and can reverse many things. And for this reason, he will not disparage any person. Yeah. I'll tell the story, but I'm gonna pause. Okay, after that juicy story. All right. So then he gives a second interpretation. O hapirush kulo nimshach, or it's all one case. Va'amar ish tuvanos yisbo lemavazehu v'yachrish l'ra'aso ad ra'oso malkum linkom. That's a different thing. Okay, so or it's saying the man of understanding will tolerate the mockery and he'll be silent for that guy's evil, waiting to see a place to get revenge. Okay, so he'll wait for the proper moment to strike. Okay, so again, that's what I always use that genre of the Mishlei Psukim of like how the Torah prohibits revenge, but like that's not going to stop people. So like at least do it with Chachma.
This is true. I see this in conversations when people lower the level of conversation to like a personal attack. Either the conversation immediately breaks down because people then start responding and they say, well, how dare you get offended, and it just degrades, or the person is waiting. They're waiting for the moment, and you can't like avoid that desire because it's insulting. It's hurtful. Right.
Yeah. And again, and that I think falls into the territory of Rבינו Yona that he was warning against, which is that if you respond in kind, like in the same way, like with a zinger of your own or another mockery, like that's just you've just allowed yourself to be dragged down to this guy's level, and people might view you as that, and you're going to seem just as petty as that guy, and like that's not going to be good for you. But it's funny, the Meiri goes further and he tries to explain Yahrish in that way. He says, "V'li od b'milas Yahrish me'inyan choresh ra." So Yahrish could also mean to plot evil. Okay, v'kamohu b'inyan David, like it says for David, ki alav Shaul macharish hara. Shaul was macharish ra for him, so silently plotting evil. Klomar mishtadel lacharosh alav ra b'mirma u'v'takbulos. Silently plotting how to harm him through deception and strategies. So I think he's trying to weave that into this interpretation, saying that like someone who gets insulted should be silent and like plot your revenge in silence. It's
interesting. Like this silence, it doesn't seem like pure meditation and like just understanding of the universe. It does seem like there is a plotting with this person listening to the thing. Right.
Okay, let's look at the Radak. Radak is also similar to Rבינו Yona. I'm gonna have to stop soon, by the way. I didn't realize it's so close to 9. Baz l'rehu chasar lev, ha'adam shu bli da'as mavaze es rehu. Someone without knowledge will deride his friend, kishe yarivimo, when his friend is quarreling with him, v'yachshavehu l'klum, and he will think of him as nothing. So the scenario is, I'm arguing with somebody and I will deride that person and like dismiss him and think of him as nothing. V'ishtvunos Yahrish ki'ilu lo hirgish b'davar. The Ishtvunos will be silent as if he didn't feel anything. Ela shomer hadavar b'libo, but rather he'll guard the matter in his heart. K'inyan Shaul vayhi kamachrish, like Shaul did. He held it in his heart. That's not like the Ralbag was learning. The Ralbag was learning he didn't react. This is saying he reacted internally, but he just didn't externally reveal it. Okay, I'm not sure what he's getting out of this. And then he gives another interpretation. O pirushu mishish lo sone, if you have an enemy, hasachal yivazehu v'yomar eno yacholi. So the fool will say about his enemy, will deride his enemy and say he cannot defeat me. V'chacham Yahrish v'yimtza tachbulos lihinakim imeno. Another revenge thing. The chacham will be silent and find strategies to take revenge against him. Umare atmo ki'ilu lo hirgish b'davar, but will make it seem as though he didn't feel anything. That's very much like the Meiri, like someone's trying to victimize you, and so you just are silent, but you're really plotting your revenge. That is my alarm. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot more to think about here. I would want to develop these other approaches, but I do have to stop now, though. So let's just review we got one really good idea, though, right? So our idea, even though we said it a lot, just to review it at the end, was that when you find someone, whether another person or yourself, in a situation that could be mock worthy or worthy of derision, so then a person who's chasar lev will mock that person, and in doing so, they'll be absorbing all their emotional energy in that, and blocking off opportunities for learning, and exposing themselves to all the consequences of indulging that bad mita and engaging in mockery and like creating a desire for revenge in the other person. All very, very, very bad decision, which will lead to harm and further lack of knowledge. But ish tevunos might be drawn to mock that person, or might have, if you're the one who's suffering the mockery, might be drawn to like reacting to respond back, or to like feel bad about the situation of being mocked. But if you're ish tavunos, you will use it as an opportunity to think into that and to learn as much as you can, to gather all the data points, learn, well, why is this guy mocking me? You know, is there something that he's saying that's true? Why am I reacting like this? Why do I feel compelled to mock? And he'll use this as an opportunity to gain more knowledge. So he'll be silently contemplating that. And that's where he'll invest his energy, you know? So it warrants a response, and the response focuses on the scenario, but what are you going to do with that energy? Are you going to use it for tuna, or are you going to use it for like further bizui? Yeah. Okay. This was a fun pasuk.
That was really good.
Yeah.
I struggled with it at first, but this one's a good one.
Yeah. It's fine. I remember in my very first high school class I taught in Mishlei, then I remember teaching this and we couldn't come up with anything. And so I think this is the first time I've come back to this pasuk since then. So we came up with something.
Nice.
Yep.
That was great.
All righty.
Great work, guys.
All right. Yep. Good work.
Good night. Thanks,
have a good
Rabbi.
night, and talk to you next time. All right. Bye.